Welcome back, everybody, to week 4 of our exciting webinars. We have the usual crew here, Shailesh, Sandeep, Jason. Want to thank everybody for joining us. Jason, if you want to get everybody up to speed and share what we're going to do today.
Yeah, being right at 12, looks like we got about 20% of the registered people on, so maybe we'll give it just another minute or two just to see if we get people jump on, and then we'll get things kicked off.
In the meantime, I'm going to share my deck. See if can you guys see it? Visible?
Not quite yet.
No.
Okay. There you go. Hiccup number 1. I'm sorry.
That's why we got the waiting time. You were good.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to share this. I'm going to say share. It's my bad. Here we go. Give me 1 second, okay?
You're good. Give us a couple minutes for everybody to hop on.
I'll be back in this meeting. Okay, give me 1.
Yep, no worries. While we wait for Shailesh to get in, hopefully everyone on the call here had a great, safe holiday weekend. It's warm out there, so get outside, enjoy some time with the family.
Back. Here we go. We good?
Let me just gotta toggle you on up there. Hopefully.
Still can see it.
You can see it?
It cannot. I can see the share on there, but the content's not popping up.
I'm sharing my screen, so let me try this. Wow. Okay. Can you see anything?
Try it again here.
It says I'm sharing my screen, so.
No, I still can't see it. It's all black.
Okay, what I'm going to do is, sorry guys, I'm actually going to copy this. Something is happening with my machine. So Jason, I'm going to actually just send this to you and Sandeep, so you have it. I apologize. Something is going on with my machine this morning. Okay, Sandeep, if you can, it should be in your inbox. If you can open, that'll be great. And then just share it. Or if that doesn't work, then we'll go to Jason.
Could you, I haven't received the file. Could you share it on Teams or? Oh.
No, it should be in your email. Or Jason, one of you, I think if you get it, just open it.
Sorry for our guest here. Will be up in just a second.
People are still trickling in, so it's okay.
I haven't seen it come over to me yet, Shailesh. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Sandeep.
Yeah, I'm unable to open the slide. I feel like the slide's not loading for me, but
Okay, let me share it. Can I go out? Let me leave Teams and come back. Okay, see if that helps.
Sure. Maybe while we're waiting, I don't know if anyone that's in the audience, if you guys had any questions from the first few sessions, we could certainly try to tackle one of those real quick. Hopefully those just take a moment, but if anybody has a follow-up, or if anybody tried any of the tips we showed you the last few weeks at home, love to see if you've seen any positive impact from that.
We've been working with the team at Ride the Next Wave internally on building out a AI version of the esteemed Marty. We've named it internally Mini Marty, and we are super excited about its capabilities. We'll probably put together a video on it. We won't do a webinar, but we'll release a video on it and share. There we go. But the
Can you see it?
capabilities are really incredible. Yes, we're good.
All right. Well, again, thank you for your patience, everyone. We are now on our, close on our cameras here on the side too, just to make the screen a little bigger. We are now on our fourth and final webinar in the series. The first 3 sessions were about how to use AI and the best practices around that. Today, we're going to shift to having AI do the work on your behalf while you review the outcome. So this should hopefully create a new perspective on how you think about your role at work. Again, those first 3 sessions had you doing all the work. You were the one drafting the prompt, updating the file, reading the output, deciding what to do next. Today, really the question is, which parts of that loop can an agent handle on its own? So with that, I'll kick it over to, I think, Sandeep, are you going to start us off today, and we'll get rolling?
Yep, perfect. Hey guys, welcome back for the 4th session. Today, as the title suggests, we're going to be looking back or looking into the concept of AI agents and automation, right? Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to do a little something different from the previous workshops. Instead of practicing prompts together, we're now going to talk about how to shift your perspective on what AI can do. Hopefully, by the end of this hour, you will not just be able to know how to talk to it, but actually know how to hand it to a job, review its work, and we'll do a live demonstration that will build and test this whole AI agentic process. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Right, so this is the thought for today, right? Let me paint the picture of where we've been at. So for the past 3 sessions, we have been looking, we're the one that's been doing the heavy lifting, right? We typed the prompt, we read the response, and you decide what to do with the output. You copied it somewhere useful, and that part of AI was helpful, sure. But it was like having a smart colleague who can only talk, right? Never pick up a pen, never send an email, never open a spreadsheet. So today's session is like what we're trying to do there is cross the line over. So we're going to be exploring what happens when AI just stops talking and starts taking actions, such as planning steps, using tools, checking its own work, right? The person typing the prompt becomes the person reviewing the finished product. And that is fundamentally a different relationship. And it is what changes for every role in this room. Can you go to the next slide? Perfect. So here's basically what our goal for today is. We want you to feel confident walking into any meeting, and when someone says we should build an AI agent and actually contribute to the design of that project, not just sitting there silently while the engineers do the talking. And the reason we save this for the last is deliberate, right? The sessions 1 to 3 was giving you vocabulary, gave you hands-on data skills and gave you awareness of what you could do when things go sideways. Without that foundation today we would not understand most of it, right? So really just review the first few things you will be walking through today. First, we're going to walk through a clear mental picture of what separates an agent from a chatbot, something you could sketch on a whiteboard for a colleague. And the second would be a 5-part template, which would be used for describing any agent project in plain business meetings. Third, we will look at questions that makes you valuable with AI planning meetings, right? And then fourth, we'll basically walk through a live agent. We'll pause 3 times and show how the tracing works within the agent. And then fifth, we'll show you a personal worksheet mapping agent opportunities in your day-to-day work and where you should be focused on. Could you go to the next slide? Perfect. So this is just our journey for today, right? We'll be spending a few minutes going through each of the topics, foundations, what is the difference between a chat versus an agent. We'll have an agent demo and 3 design pauses. And after that, we'll have 3 questions that every business expert should ask when planning to go about doing an agentic workplace. Then we have the agent opportunity map, which basically maps out sections within the agent that you need to think about before you do anything agentic. And then we'll have the closing where we recap what we built and a few questions to test your knowledge. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, yes, as you can see on the slide, before we even get into the frameworks, I wanted to show you what a 30,000-foot view of where the market is heading. Right, and this is what we're seeing with our clients on our day-to-day basis, right? The first few trends is that AI is sort of graduating from a conversation partner to more of an independent worker, right? It is no longer just answering questions, it is planning sequences of work and executing them. The second trend, that's the first one, but the second trend we look at here is the tool integration. Most of the modern AI agents are not isolated, right? They're plugged directly into your ERP, your CRM, your ticketing system, your billing platform, right? They can read data, update records, and move workflows without a human copy pasting these between windows. The third one we see is companies not only building a giant super agent, right? They're building many small specialized sub agents. One that sorts the incoming request, another that resolves common issues, a third that is supervising the first 2, right? And then connecting them through an orchestration framework. The fourth section we're seeing is that agents are currently moving away from waiting for instructions to watching the prompts, right? They monitor events, they spot anomalies, they take corrective steps before you even know something went wrong. The fifth one, and this is what we're seeing as a more critical, the organizations getting real values are the ones that are heavily investing in safety guardrails, audit trails, permission controls, right? Compliance rules, and clear boundaries. And towards the end, finally, the departments leading the adoption are the ones with the highest ROI, right? Would be such as customer service, operations, supply chain, field support, etc. So that's where most of the market's heading. Can we go to the next slide? Perfect. So this is really simple. Well, let's just get into the meat of it. The first module is basically going to explain the foundation for everything else today. I just want to show what the distinction is when we're looking at a chat and when we're looking at an agent. Next line. Okay, so this is basically the most important shift from today's conversation is on the left side, right? Think about all the interactions you've had with AI so far. You type in something, the AI gives you a response, and then you, the human, decides what to do with the response. Maybe you edit it, maybe you paste it into an email, maybe you run the numbers as it's suggested. The AI helped you go faster. I'm sorry, Jason, was there something you wanted to add?
Oh, you go ahead and finish it. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
go ahead. Yep.
Perfect. So the AI basically helps you go faster, right? You're the one staring at every step. Now you want to look at the right side, which is an agent, right? This is different. And here you define the objective up front. You say what needs to happen, by when, and by what information. Then you step back, right? The AI figures out, or the agent figures out, what steps it needs to take, in which order, it reads the data it needs, it performs the calculation, and draws the output. When it's done, you come back as a reviewer. You check the work, approve it, and send it back for revision. So this fundamental change is who is doing the work, right? In chat, you're the worker and AI is the advisor. With an agent, AI is the worker and you're the supervisor, right? Think of it this way, like
That's kind
sorry,
of what I
go
was gonna say. This transition, it really is looking from chat to agent is really a mindset shift that AI is a tool you use versus AI being a role that you manage, which you kind of know.
Yep. And you can also think of it like the difference is like texting a friend for restaurant recommendations versus telling a personal assistant to make the reservation, right? Confirm the dietary restrictions and send the calendar in. So that's chat versus agent. Could we go into the next slide? Thank you. So now that you understand the difference, and let me give you a tool that you can put into practice, right? When you hire a person, you write a job description. You define who they are, what they're responsible for, what tools they have access to, and what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. We're practically doing the same thing for an AI agent. Over there on the first slide, you see element 1 is role. And we've talked about this role and context and prompts, right? But with the role, you define a specific identity and an area of expertise, right? You would never hire a general helper for your finance team. You would hire someone with area of expertise, right? And someone who understands your chart of accounts, your reporting cadence, your internal terminologies, everything, right? Same principle here. We follow that. And the second part element is the goal, right? This is where most people stumble. A goal is not a task. A task is like pull the data, whereas a goal would be have the completed analysis and an executive summary ready for a leadership meeting, maybe Monday morning at 7. So the difference matters because agents need outcomes to work towards, not just instructions to follow, right? The third element is tools. What systems can this agent read, right? Write to or trigger. They're equally important, right? And then the last one, or what it cannot explicitly touch. Defining both sides of the boundary is half the design work, right? You've defined it what it can. Now you want to make sure that it doesn't take any missteps, which is where you define something called guardrails and the checkpoint. These are basically like your safety nets, right? Guardrails are never hard, never do this rules. Checkpoints are the places where a human steps in to review this before the work goes any further. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the yeah.
Yeah, I think just you reiterate that, right? You wouldn't go hire somebody on the first day, go figure it out, right? You define what their role is going to be, what outcome you're expecting, what tools they can use in your organization. Ultimately, who are they reporting to? Who do they need to check in, right? So those same instincts that you bring when you're hiring somebody, it really is identical as you're defining an agent and designing it.
Yep, absolutely. Could we go into the next slide, please? Perfect. So now we've been walking through David Chen's example since session 1. And we're going to characterize this, right? So David Chen works in finance, again, a mid-size manufacturer every morning. Monday morning, he spends maybe 3 hours pulling data from the ERP, comparing it against prior periods, identifying the variances, and drafting the message to the CFO, summarizing what has happened and what needs attention. Now, that's the problem statement. Now, we'll fill in that with the agent specs we've decided in the previous slides, right? The role in this case becomes the financial analyst who understands the company's specific chart of accounts and internal reporting standards, not just a generic number cruncher, right? The goal is specific and time bound. The variance summary, the escalation flags, and the CFO emails draft all need to be ready by Sunday morning. That's the rule. The tools section says that the agent can read certain expense reports from the ERP and read the last quarter reports for comparison purposes. It can draft an email, but notice what it can't do, right? It cannot send that email. It cannot write back into the ERP. These restrictions are basically internal design choices that the person chooses to do. Next, we have the guardrails. The guardrails basically says the agent must never modify certain source records, right? Never include salary details in anything shared outside the finance team and must never transmit anything externally. That's the guardrail. And the checkpoint, that is the human in the loop, makes David the final reviewer, right? He checks the variance ranking to make sure that the priorities are right, and he approves the CFO's email before it goes out. So as you can see, the 5 spec lines up properly is basically what a business person hands to their technical team. It is specific, it's mostly complete, and every decision, design decision is visible here.
Yeah, I'm saying if you guys can fill this out for a workflow in your own role, you've done the hard part, right? I mean, technically there's still deployment things needed to do, but figuring this out is the magic. So if you can follow this script and apply to something in your day, you're on your way to create an agent.
Perfect. Could we go to the next slide? Perfect. So we're just going to go through a demo that shows, which is not in Cowork this time. We're going to go as a live temporary demo that I made on my laptop, which is deployed locally, which just shows a demo scenario, and then which I'll walk you guys through. I'll walk you through the reasoning trace, and then we'll look at the demo. So we'll just set up the scenario again, right? As you can read, David's finance agent runs on a schedule, right? It kicks off every night and has everything ready by morning. This is one shape an agent can take, right? A batch processing. But agent can come in different shapes, right? This one is a triage agent, a real-time triage agent for customer support. The way it works is that a customer ticket comes in, the agent reads the customer's message, figures out what category it falls to, searches the knowledge base for relevant information, drafts a response, and then routes the whole package to the specialist for review. Right? The human always sees it before the customer does. Again, we'll just walk through the 5 elements of this process. So the role here is the support specialist who knows the product catalog route within maybe 2 minutes of the ticket landing. Right? The tools would be includes mainly reading the ticket, searching internal articles, composing a draft response, and putting it in the right queue. But the agent cannot send anything directly to the customer. That's why we have something called guardrails. The guardrails here would specify to the risks of the customer with legal threats, right? Or specify the risk of customer communication, right? You can have like no promising refunds, no revealing internal pricing structures, no engaging, again, with customers with any kind of legal threats. The checkpoint here, however, requires a human in the loop to review every single response before it reaches the customer, with an automatic escalation for high value accounts, right? And this is what I want you to notice. This is the exact same framework we use for David's finance agent. Completely different departments, completely different workflow, but it follows the same structure. And this is the power of the good framework that we're going to see. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So there's something called a reasoning trace, right? What happens? Let me pull back the curtain. What happens within the agent's run? When you open the completed task, you can see every step it took, where its data looked at, what calculations it ran, which items it flagged, and the reasoning behind each item flagged, right? This is what separates an agent ran from a clever prompt pair response, right? Here's the interesting part. The agent would basically look at all the finances or the variances, marketing maybe having the biggest problem, right, over here. But the agent HR as a critical item, right? Why is that? Because maybe marketing has spent a lot, right? So you can look at the agent step by step and figure out certain flaws that the agent's looking through and knows how to prioritize one over the other. And this is the reasoning trace, right? Which we will show you in the next slide. Cool. Right, as you can see on the screen, the agent is now looking at different orders that is coming in within the inbox. Okay? As you can see, there are a bunch of different messages on the screen. Let's take the first one. Let's say a person says, I can't, oh, is it possible to go back for a second and pause right at the email? Thank you. So let's say a person sends a ticket saying to the IT team, hey, I reset my password an hour ago, but I'm still getting invalid credentials. Here's the order number that helps, right? And we sent this. So if we run the ticket through the agent step by step, what you'll see on the right is an audit trail. Yeah, you can play. Perfect. So what you'll see on the right is an audit trail of how the agent works. So as we've discussed, this is what the agent's doing. It's reading the ticket.
Here
Right.
we go.
Yep. It reads the ticket, understands it, and then understands where to look into within the knowledge base by understanding the chunks, finds the relevant article that explains it. Yeah. And then drafts a response based on the categories and the guardrail set for it. Draft is saved, awaiting for human review. That gets posted to you, where you audit the email before it goes out. Yeah. And then you can just look through the dashboard and say send. As you can see on the right, I have shown an audit trail of what the agent takes step by step, all the way from looking through the knowledge base, deciding which guardrails to follow, and towards the end, you can click on send. Once you send the email, that goes back to a temporary Gmail inbox that I've built, and you can see the responses there. So you've noticed step by step how the agent's working. The role, context, you're looking at the guardrails and the checkpoints with the access controls, and you finally get a drafted response with the human in the loop being the most critical part of this demo, where you identify or audit the email before it goes back to the customer. Yep, could you go to the new slide? Perfect. So right now, what we discussed is more of a technical framework of how an agent works. And this is the easier part that we tend to ignore, right? We always have a business expert who understands the problem statement better than the agent does. And that's what we want to transition into.
Perfect.
Yep.
Sandeep, thank you. So hi everyone. As Sandeep kind of talked about, what are the kind of the ingredients which goes into the agent? You saw a demo of it, things like guardrails. Now let's assume that you are the business expert. Now you're figuring out opportunities in your own organization to improve your top line or bottom line, and decision is to leverage AI. So what for the bit of next 10 minutes, what we want to show you is when you build an agent, there is a method to that madness, and we want to actually show you some of the things you need to think about in terms of um, we are talking about building agents which do things on your behalf. But then how do you make sure that um, you build them in a way where there are guardrails around it, there is security around it, there is data it's using, you got to think about it. So that's what we're going to walk you through it. Okay. So when we build agents, and this is what we recommend to everyone, there is a autonomy spectrum. Like you can have a task which is or a business process which is done completely manually today with people involved in this end-to-end process. Even Sandeep just walked through um, all the way from you can build something where what Sandeep just showed. There is an agent we build, but we had a human in the loop, right? But there are times where you can use AI to even take the action a human would do, which is what we talk about as a full autonomy for the agent. So what we are trying to show here is what does that autonomy spectrum really looks like. And as you are building agents in your own organization, we want you to think about this autonomy spectrum, where there is level 0, where it's everything is done by humans today or people. But then level 1 is AI is suggesting and humans are actually approving it, just like how Sandeep actually kind of showed the action of sending an email. Okay. Then the level 2 could be where AI is suggesting, human is approving, um, but the system is executing things behind the scene, right? Where 90% AI human agreement is there in this level 2, what we call it a semi-autonomous kind of a version of the agent. Then there is the level 3 where you give selective autonomy, like AI is executing, humans only approve a high risk type of a scenario. That means the agent will have to look at what it produced, show some type of a confidence level or some type of a risk. And based off of a certain threshold, if it's below the threshold, the agent can take the action. If it's above the threshold, then you can actually have another human in the loop. That's kind of level 3. And once you get comfortable with it, you can actually you have thought through all the scenarios for your business. You basically build something called a fully autonomous agent, which handles 90% of your kind of uh, traditional scenarios, but escalates only 10% of the scenarios to the humans involved. And all they do is they just basically review and take action on it, right? But you could see, right, when you start building an agent to get to a complete autonomy, it is time, right? Because you have to train the agent, because ultimately it is learning from humans, and that's why we always put a lot of emphasis on humans in the loop at every given point in time. Test and learn, iterate through it. So anyway, just wanted to show you a perspective on how we think about agents. But there are, as you build these, and by the way, start always with level 1. Okay. AI is suggesting, and humans are actually approving and executing the task. And then as you can get comfortable, you get to level 4. Okay.
Yeah, I think you can't start at level 4 and work backwards, right?
Exactly.
The time cost of doing it in the right sequence will always be less than the cleanup cost of trying to just jump ahead and then go back and realize you got stuff you got to clean up and make the right way.
Yep. and we'll show you what happens when you get to level 4. Um, Not get, when you start at level 4, what happens? We'll show you, okay? And these are the other aspects of agentic capabilities we're building, which you all should be thinking of. Okay, so yes, there is agents, there is AI. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone are looking at almost like a positive or a rosy picture of it, right? But our experience and understanding of the industry is has showed us that there are things which no one will tell you, which is AI agents will save basically 80% of cost. In reality, year one, you will probably save only 25% of what you originally thought, the benefit you are getting. So just plan for it, because there is a time you will spend as an organization learning it. Just plug an LLM and go. No, 70% of the work you will end up building when you build agents is control system. How do you control AI? And not just AI. AI is the easiest part. Building controls is the toughest part. But no one will tell you this, okay? Because everybody thinks about the rosy picture. Number 3 is set it and forget it. Nope, that's not what it is. You got to think about continuous monitoring, continuously tune. You will come across new scenarios. If you are monitoring emails and autonomously actually taking actions based off of that, there will be some certain circumstances where you will end up in some kind of a scenario where you will have to fine tune it. So there is a continuous improvement cycle in it. And the last one, which is another uncomfortable truth, AI makes better decisions than humans. That is not true. Eventually, maybe 10 years from today, or maybe 6 years from today, we'll get there, but not today. The reality is AI makes very, very consistent decisions, but humans are really, really good at handling the edge cases.
Yeah,
So
and
just
I
wanted
believe,
to
I believe
go
that,
ahead.
the second row is probably the one that surprises most teams, right? Where 70% of the work is control systems, not AI. The model is the smallest part of the build. What takes time again is the error handling, the audit logging, the recovery logic, the
Exactly.
human review workflows. And if you don't budget and timeline for that, it's a good chance their project's going to stall before it even gets out of the demo phase.
Absolutely. And as Jason said, here are some additional things to think about, right? Where what can go wrong when you build agents and don't think through the autonomy spectrum, don't think about kind of what we talk about, the uncomfortable truth. So here are some of the things based on our experiences we have seen, and there are a lot of organizations there where in the press and publicly a lot of events actually got talked about because these events have happened, okay, in last 3+ years. So AI exposed customer data in an email, right? Cost was GDPR violation, damage to user trust, right, from a customer perspective. Cause there was no PII masking in the agent. Never thought about it. Number 2, AI approved 50K refund without a human review. Cost $50,000 loss. This goes back to human in the loop. Sandeep showed that example, right? Um, Missing threshold checks. So you need to build in those control systems, what Jason just kind of talked about. You got to build those in. Number 3, AI modify the record without an audit trail. If you are in a industry like where you have to comply with, let's say, HIPAA regulations or SOX compliances, I guess it's there in every organization today, publicly organization. But there are needs for making sure that you are keeping an audit trail of every single thing humans do today. You need to do the same thing from an agent perspective, right? Because you will fail an audit. Because in fact, as we speak, over the period of last 2 years, a lot of the compliance laws are getting updated, re-returned, because today agents are capable of doing what humans were able to do or are able to do, right? So that's a third thing where, like, log every single thing, just like we do it today in our systems. And the fourth one, which it has happened to, there are lots of examples where AI will basically send wrong information to your customers, and now you have a nightmare from a customer management and managing their expectations perspective. It's going to need a lot of time and causing basically, it's basically a PR nightmare in your hand, right? And the cause was the data was never formatted. There was no checks on the data, and that was never caught during the testing. So what we are emphasizing is, as you are building your agents, make sure that you're building mechanisms to manage all of these type of scenarios. We put a lot of emphasis on human in the loop, right? And it's a very, very important, what we call it, critical layer. And that is your safety net when you are building an agent. That is your teacher who is teaching the AI. And that is going to what make and break your deployment based on our experiences. And we have seen this even in the industry as well. So we wanted to show you like an example of what a traditional kind of a human in the loop riffs look like, what an enhanced human in the loop look like, and how it can get better and better, right? Like iterate through it, and as Sandeep said, just take the next iteration, make it better, and the next one. So you can see a traditional approval where AI is suggesting, I suggest we should ship on November 2nd. Humans get to just choose at that point in time. But it is an example of human in the loop if you want to be confident. Eventually, when you do this a lot more times and you find that, you know what, every time I'm actually accepting what the agent is telling me, boom, right? That is the step where you can actually automate it. Here is another version of enhanced approval, right? AI is giving a delivery date. Your email says your order ships a number, ERP status got updated. Human options are approve as it is, edit and then approve or reject with the feedback, right? So you can implement that pattern. And the last pattern is escalation mode, where I'm only 73% confident about this delivery date, which goes back to what Sandeep had said ahead of time earlier in the presentation, is always make sure that the AI's confidence level is part of your build, because it's going to give you that that mechanism, control mechanism, where you can actually then have either it escalated, someone to basically take an action on it. But AI knows when it needs help. You need to build that mechanism into it. So anyway, just wanted to show you, like, what 3 different flavors of human in the loop kind of a layer, which is a critical layer, really looks like. So yes, you build agents, you put them into production, but as I said, there are going to be gotchas, right? And you're going to learn through it. But the reason that we want to share that upfront with you, because you can think about these upfront, right? As you are looking at building agents for your organization. So the first one is, now humans are not processing your, let's say, transactions. AI is processing your transactions. And what will happen, and we have seen this happening, is there'll be duplicate processing of your transactions. How do you manage that? You send basically 2 checks to your customer, 2 refunds to your customer, ship 2 orders. That will happen. So how do you think about that, right? So you got to actually think about that upfront on day one when you are building your agents. The audit trail, we already talked about that. Log every single action type, who did the action on whose behalf, what was the action, what was the state before, what was the state after. It's going to give you a lot of confidence to even further improve this or build some control mechanism around it. The confidence gap we just talked about, I only feel confident 73%. So that's another kind of a production gotcha. You can actually build it, right? Results are escalate to humans, right? If date falls within a weekend or needs a review, you can build that safety mechanism. And the last one is a recovery problem, which is not a business process issue, but ultimately there is technology, cloud, your databases where you're putting all this data in. Something is going to go wrong. And how do you make sure that these workflows, agentic workflows for every single transaction which will be there, how do you make sure that you plan for things like server crashes or things like network went down, So you got to think through these production gotchas as you are taking your agents from dev to test to prod. We just wanted to share some of these experiences we have had and how we actually solve those challenges. So anyway, this is just another aspect of what are some of those guardrails you can build. So as you work with in your organization, with your teams, you are talking to your technology team, your partners. These are the three questions we thought which are most important when you are actually working with your tech team, right? Where they are coming and saying, yeah, let's build this, let's automate this process. But it's important to think through all of the content we already reviewed, right? So question one is what business value it will create if this works. It's you have to think about that upfront. What we call it building a business case. Question two, what is the real cost if something goes wrong? And we just looked at those scenarios. So ask those questions as you're actually designing or even you're having an almost like a conversation around thinking about which process to automate. Question number three, what's the human checkpoint? Which is why we shared kind of those scenarios upfront, because as you are working with your tech team, you may want to ask them those questions. And people who are engineering, who come from that background, who are in IT today, right, from your own experiences, what could go wrong. So we just wanted to share that perspective with you. But ask these questions as you are kind of building these agents. So we just wanted to kind of give you a template of when you are building business cases for AI, automation, just think through from a value perspective, cost perspective, checkpoint perspective. And the value is obviously the biggest thing which is going to drive it, right? Cost, it's not just cost of building, but cost of what could go wrong, right? Reputational damage, legal issues, relationship damage with your customers. Just think through all of that and make sure that you always have humans in the loop until you get a confidence. So we have seen, some of our clients where they maintain a level of threshold, right? Orders beyond a certain dollar value always need a human review, right? Orders for certain customers always needs to be, because these customers are near and dear to you, and they are high value customers. For those customers, there's always a human in the loop. So there are just so many kind of what I call it guardrails you can build in to make sure that you are taking care of your customers, but at the same time protecting your organization financially, legally, and from a reputation perspective. So hopefully that gave you a perspective of, when we build agents, how do you think about them, the sequence, the guardrails, questions you should be asking for. So, but what we thought was we can give you a framework on how would you even identify what are the opportunities in your organization for building these agents, whether they are autonomous, semi-autonomous. And these are the things we typically see. And there are a lot of other use cases, but these are the most, what we call it, most typical scenarios we have seen where agentic capabilities can be applied. One is you have a lot of repetitive work someone is doing in your organization, in your functions, pulling data from one system, connecting the data, reconciling the data, summarizing it, and then taking some action on it on a regular basis. A perfect scenario for an agent. Things like you are monitoring and alerting, like your customer service emails would be a really good one, where an agent can actually monitor, watching for certain thresholds, watching for certain customers, watching for certain situations where you want to automatically bring monitoring and alerting. So an agent could do that. And the last one is really kind of what we call it drafting and routing, right? Routing for approvals, routing to the right humans, building customer responses, summarizing things. What we are also seeing is, even though these are typical, but there are flavors of this, right? Drafting and routing, you can see It can use existing data. It can have your organizational knowledge can be used for drafting content. A lot of people in the marketing space today on their websites, 80% of the content which is on websites today is produced by pretty much agents today, right? Or humans are just reviewing it. So there are a lot of opportunities. Anyway, hopefully this gives you um, some what I call it understanding of where the opportunities are, and these are what I call it opportunities to bring efficiency. But there are a lot of organizations today are using AI to drive top line, right? I don't know if you have heard one of the organizations in the healthcare space. They actually created an agent to do drug discovery because they had a lot of internal research, they have previous products, they have patents, IP, they brought all of it together, they brought scientific knowledge into it to figure out how to build an agent to discover new drugs. So you could see, the it's just opportunities are unlimited. But we thought, these three categories are very common where you can start immediate value creation when you think about building agents. These are the ideas by role, because we know that there are in this webinar there are participants from a lot of different departments. So these are just examples. These are no mean the examples, but things like monthly various reports across your departments, right? Which basically connects data, supply chain, inventory reconciliation across your ERP, supplier portal, demand planning tools. How many times we have seen that, right? Where we end up doing it. Anyway, sales, right? Drafting your emails based on call notes and the CRM context. Immediate, like how many of us are using Salesforce, and your customer service agents at the end of the call are taking at least 5 to 7 minutes to summarize the call. All of that can be managed by agents today. So anyway, hopefully, it gives you a flavor of what all the possibilities or ideas for building agents. But wherever there is a process which connects to other processes and ultimately produce a result, agent is a really good um, um, candidate for those ideas. And then, as I said, right, you create your own opportunity map, look at for those categories of work, where are the opportunities in your own personal space, for your team, for your department, in your organization. Have those conversations with your partners, with your colleagues to come up with ideas in your organization. And then as you come up with these ideas, always make sure that you have some type of a value statement. Is it going to save me time? Is it going to save our customers time? Is it going to make our customers' life easy? Always capture a metric, because that metric is what's going to help you sell it. So anyway, we just wanted to share an opportunity map and how you can actually use this is just a template, but you can enhance this template based on your business and your industry. When you have these opportunities in front of you, these are the 4 steps I think you should take as you have ideas. Pick the best opportunity, best idea, which has the highest potential of creating value and highest possibility of bringing it to life, right? Write what you would do in that scenario. That becomes, as Sandeep said, your agent's job description. And then ask those 3 questions we just shared earlier. Where is the value? What's the cost if it fails? What are those human checkpoints look like? And then once you have it, you have a really good story at that point in time. And then you can actually pitch it to, your leadership team, your department heads, your manager. But at that point, you can have a really good conversation because you have done all the prep. you have thought about guardrails. You have thought about, all these gotchas we kind of shared with you, right? And because when you have an idea in your mind, your next step is not a project. Your next step is sell the idea. And to sell the idea, you are going to need those 1, 2, 3 ingredients. So we thought we'll just kind of share from our perspective how we actually build and bring ideas to life. And these are the things we end up actually asking. So anyway, so that hopefully that gave you, right, today, Sandeep kind of talked about how you build an agent. What are some of the things you should think about? We saw a demo, and then hopefully, in last 20 minutes, we gave you an overview of like how to think about it, the autonomy spectrum, how to come up with your own ideas, what details do you want to have to think about it to build your pitch. So as we do normally, right, we are coming to the end of this webinar and the series, but we're going to ask you 3 questions. Just give us your answers. So here's the first one. What is the key difference between AI chat and AI agent? The agents use more expensive AI models. Agent has a goal, tools, and can decide what to do next without asking you every time. Agent can only work with structured data. There is no real difference. Agents are just paired to chat. Oh, I can't see the answers, okay, but I'm assuming.
We got a lot of B's coming in.
Woo, there we go. B is the answer. Here's the next one. Why is human checkpoint in the agent job description is really critical? It slows the agent down. It defines where business judgments adds value. Regulatory require every AI output, or D, without it, agent would send emails automatically.
Looks like
I'm assuming-
B is popular today. Another B.
There you go. A lot of B. I think B was popular even in the last webinar, I think so. Your tech team proposes an agent. What is the first question you should ask? What is the AI model? What's the business value if it works? Hours, dollars, outcomes. Can we build it in 2 weeks? Will it replace someone's job?
We're gonna have to switch these up on the next webinar.
I
B
know,
again for the winner.
I know. Thank you, everyone, for taking those questions. Again, we want to leave with you these common questions about AI agents. It sounds like an engineering problem, not mine. That's exactly the assumption that makes most AI projects fail, by the way, right? Won't agents replace people, including me? No, that's not it. There's always going to be human in the loop. Human are still intelligent. We're training agents. Just imagine we are the ones who have trained AI. How do we trust agent to do something that is important? You don't just trust the agent, you trust the design of it. And as we just walked you through that things, if you think about those things integrated, I think you will do a really amazing job designing that agent. And the last one, where do I even start, right? Start with your opportunity map. Pick a problem where the time savings matter the most for the organization. And then bring the people, build your pitch, sell your pitch, bring that agent job description with you, because that's going to give you a lot of credibility that you have done your homework. So what you are taking home today is, we're coming to the end of it, right? But this foundational track series, but hopefully you got the mental model. Sandeep shared the how do you create agent job description, 3 questions for every business expert to ask to their teams, your personal agent opportunity map, and your role as a business expert and AI partner. And then obviously your tech team needs you with them in the room when you are building these opportunities. So hopefully you got the glimpse of how we think about when we build agents and what are those gotchas, things to think about, how to create value. Hopefully you get a flavor of it. we're always here for questions, right? Tech River team is your connection. With that, I know we're coming to the end of this series. I'm actually going to give it to Jason.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone that joined today. And if you made it through some or all of the webinar series, we hope you guys found a lot of value. We came into session 1 trying to help you have an understanding of AI, and hopefully now you're leaving session 4 as the person who can help scope an agent, challenge your team with the right questions, and ultimately drive what gets built. So we certainly appreciate you spending the last 4 weeks with us. Hope you guys can go build some cool things. I don't know if we have any questions from anyone before we wrap things up again, but again, appreciate everybody taking the hour over your lunch break over the last 4 weeks to walk us through this series with us. I don't see any questions come up here in the next few seconds. We'll everybody get about their day. But again, thank you everybody for your attention. Reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We're happy to help some follow up or maybe help you through some strategy here.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I hope you found value in these, and definitely reach out to us.
Shalish, if you can go back to the takeaway slides, we got someone that just wants to take a quick peek on that. And Becky, you should get an email after the webinar series with a link to the whole to everything that's in there. But I don't know if you still have that available, Shalish, or not.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the takeaway slide actually. So okay, I'm gonna bring it up. Okay, everyone. So I'm gonna share it. Let me know if you can see it.
There you go. Hopefully that what you're looking for there, Becky. Perfect.
Awesome.
Grab a screenshot
Just-
or whatever, but
yeah,
again,
exactly.
you should get that. You should get an email afterwards. That'll have a link. These will all be posted on YouTube. So anyone, again, here, if you've got people on your team that weren't available to attend any of these sessions, are all recorded and available on our YouTube channel at Tech River. So perfect. Well, thanks again, everyone. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys.